everyone. It is just now 6:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate you all joining virtually and continuing to see the names and faces joining and just seeing familiar faces, seeing new faces. It's always such an awesome opportunity to get together. And thank you all for carving out some time for your evening. We will try and be really quick with the introductions and the pleasantries tonight so that we can get on with the agenda. It is a packed agenda. I do know that myself and Brandy, Mo, who is the co-president on the line tonight, is excited about having the opportunity to potentially do more things in person, more on a social capacity. But one of the good things that have come from the last couple of years is that we realized that people were able to attend virtually a lot easier, and the ability to record and provide this information on this platform after the fact, so that people can get this really great information even if they're not able to attend on these Tuesday evening meetings. So first of all, I appreciate everyone who is here in person. If you do have any questions throughout, feel free to use the comment area, which is right at the center of your screen towards the bottom. Please do make sure you're staying muted unless any of our presenters offer the opportunity for questions. I'm sure we'll have that chance as well. And we'll put important information in there too, including contact information and whatnot. Just a really quick overview of who we do have as part of the Ruby Hill Neighbors leadership, and then who we have represented. And so that, you know, when you see faces or names come across your email or coming across Facebook or social media or whatnot, you know who to reach out to. Again, my name is Jackie Geiselman. I am the co-president, along with Brandy Mo, who is our other co-president, waving. We do have co-treasurers, Megan and Ken Lane. And then we also have Tiffany, who is on the meeting tonight as well, who is our support and web guru. She's helping with our communication. There she is. There's Tiffany, and helping get our communication out to you all. We also have past leadership, including Scott Bolt and Sharona Thompson, who are our past presidents, who bring in that wealth of leadership and knowledge from previous. And then we also have Erica, who is our past communications guru. So we've had some really awesome individuals involved. So again, we're all here to help. We're all here to support. If you have any questions, let us know. A quick overview of the agenda, and then we'll jump into it. We'll have a quick overview from our District 4 police officers. I see Officer Chavez on the call as well, so we'll turn that over here shortly. We have Maggie Thompson with District 7, Lucky District number 7, Jolyn Clark's office. Councilman Clark's office, she'll do a quick update from their side of things. And then we have some really awesome representatives. We have a really great sidewalk presentation from Bicycle Colorado. We have an awesome just kind of close of season celebration / insight from our Levitt Pavilion down at the bottom of the park, which we love. And then we have one of our awesome school board representatives, Sochi Gatan, who will be presenting to close everything out. There she is. Wonderful. So we will get going right into this agenda and let you guys get on with your evening as soon as possible. But again, please feel free to use the chat. Brandy, myself, everyone will be in there kind of helping monitor and provide information. And I would love to pass it over to Officer Chavez with District 4.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for letting me be part of this. I'll go over some quick stats, and then I will get out of your hair so you guys can have your meeting. We'll start with burglary. Burglary went from 40 to 46. 15% increase. Larceny, 43 to 56, 30% increase. Theft from motor vehicle, 76 to 90, which was an 18% increase. And motor vehicle theft, 73 to 104, which was a 42% increase. Overall, sounds like the biggest jump was the motor vehicle theft. Pretty common for this time of year. Again, those are from last year compared to this year. Does anybody have any questions or anything that's come up that I can answer for you, that you haven't been able to been answered a different way? And hi, Brandy, always appreciate your text messages. So any questions, and I'll get out of your guys' hair for you.
Feel free to ask your questions in the chat too, folks, if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'm doing it on my iPhone, so sometimes it's a little hard to read those little chats. But great. Sounds like anybody's have any questions or anything like that. I think the next meeting will be in December, correct?
Likely, yes. And we'll see what November looks like. All that said too, I do know that you're always so free with your contact information. As you mentioned, you are in contact with Brandy. Is that okay if we share it in the meeting notes?
Absolutely.
So that people
Absolutely.
have access. If there is anything that comes up, especially from a community standpoint, if there's a question or anything that is happening in your neighborhood or area, I know that you've always been awesome. Before you hop off, do you mind just giving an update on some of, and maybe this might fall into Maggie's boat as well, where she'll be up next, but just as far as like the encampments that are existing in and around District 7 and our neighborhoods, as far as like, if there's any concerns with crime, theft, trash, waste, whatever it might be, do you mind just providing an update on that?
Not at all. Not at all. So we did have quite a few encampments in the Ruby Hill neighborhood. Surprisingly, I didn't hear from too many people besides the business owners, a couple of residents in the area. It is it's a very difficult situation. You know, they've had a couple teams that they put together to help out with resources, stuff that, you know, my team already does, myself, Officer Munoz and Officer Anderson, and then we have Karen Villagrana, who is our resource coordinator. You know, it's not a, we do well with it. It's just more or less that everything downtown is kind of getting pushed out to the neighborhoods, I've noticed, in the residential areas. So it's not so much down on, you know, Broadway or down on 16th, 17th downtown. It's actually in our neighborhoods. And a lot of these people I know, first name basis, you know, we're constantly out there talking to them. It's a very, very delicate situation. You know, if I wish I had an answer, if I would, I'd probably be the chief of police. You know, but we do with what we can. You know, a lot of people don't want in their neighborhoods, or they want us to jail these people and stuff like that. And I think we've come to the conclusion that we're not out to, you know, really try to jail these people. We're trying to help any resources we can. We are trying to offer all the stuff that we can, but also it's a concern in your neighborhood, and I understand that completely. Especially after Louisiana and La Pan, that was, you know, when they posted it, actually only one tent remained. The rest of them are gone. They did pop up not too far off over in the warehouse district, which is College View. So they just crossed Evans a little bit south. There still tends to be a lot off of Mississippi, right off of Mississippi, Navajo, Mississippi, Huron, Jason, Inca. All the warehouse districts have a lot of encampments, and they're more or less just RVs. They're not so much tents. The only biggest tent one was the La Pan in Louisiana. You know, myself and Joel Clark, Evan Dreyer, you know, all these people way above my pay grade that I'm working with constantly, trying to come to a solution and, you know, meet everybody's needs and provide those resources. So it's a difficult situation. Obviously, you know, we are always up for some constructive criticism, how we can handle things differently. You know, sometimes people tend to think that we're out there just arresting these people or whatever the case is, social media, you know, things like that. But in reality, we're providing resources and doing what we can. But I also know that you don't want them in your neighborhood, and that's fully understandable as well. So it's kind of being in a tough spot for us, but you're also implementing law and things like that, because it is your neighborhood as well. So I get both arguments of the spectrum completely, and I understand. So, you know, if you want to speak about this, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know it's a very, very hot topic in the city and county of Denver. You can always email me, call me, I'll meet you for coffee. You know, recently we had this commanders meeting, and this kind of blew out of proportion, and people were, from different parts of this country, on our commanders meeting. So, reach out to me personally. I'll talk to you, and I'll answer any questions. I know there's a lot of people fed up with it, and there's also people advocating for them, and I understand both points of view. So I am liaison in the community. I will always listen to you and always hear you. So reach out to me for anything. Okay. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? I think Jackie, you put in my contact information at the bottom, right?
Yeah, Brandy got that for you.
Okay,
I think
Brandy.
that if there's something that's not an immediate emergency or immediate safety concern, if it's something that's like ongoing or like a trash issue or whatnot,
Right.
would this be an appropriate contact, or would like 311 be a better contact?
You can always contact me. I work well with solid waste. Ralph is one of the, Ralph oversees solid waste, the part of it for the encampments. I call Ralph on a weekly basis, so Ralph is great. He will, he will just come if there's no one putting cameras in his face. He will absolutely come, especially Louisiana and Lipan. He's great. He just doesn't want anybody's cameras in his face. And I understand it, like I said, I understand it, but yeah, please reach out to me. Even if it's the easiest question, I'll probably pick up the phone before I'll email you 2 pages back. So you just call my office, 720-913-0276, and I will talk to you, no problem.
913, I'm sorry, what were the last 4 numbers?
0276.
0276. I appreciate it. And again, yeah, that phone number we'll post in the chat, as well as your email address in case there is anything. So it sounds like include contact information if you would like a conversation. I think, yeah, I appreciate that information. It looks like there might have been one more question, Brandy, that popped through. And then other than that, we'll be good to go.
Yeah, Officer Chavez, Beverly asked where did District 4 move? She said she drove by the station. It was all closed up.
So we didn't move. We actually had a few rocks thrown through our front window. So it just looks like it's boarded up and vacant right now. We're waiting on the glass company. There were some issues that happened. I don't even know all the specifics, but the windows were broken out. So we're still there. 2100 South Clay, the awesome, ugly green, are the gray building with the green fence, but we're still there. So definitely stop in and talk to us. I'm there. Officer Anderson's there. So we're still there.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a good meeting. And like I said, if you want to talk, separately and you don't want to take up too much time in the meeting, please call me, email me. Joel and Clark's office. I work well from 311. Those get routed to my desk. So if you call 311, it's probably gonna end up on my desk. So have a good meeting, guys, and please feel free to call me or have coffee, whatever. I don't care. So
awesome. Thanks, Officer Chavez. Appreciate you being
here.
Bye,
guys.
Thanks.
Have a good
Bye.
meeting. Okay.
Thank you. All right. Well, and that's appropriate transition. Called out Councilman Clark's office. So we have Maggie Thompson with Councilman Clark's office. And so I'll turn it on over to you.
Hey guys, for those of you who I haven't met, I'm Maggie. I work for Jolin. So I have worked alongside Anita Bonuelos, who I'm sure all of you guys know for many years now, and she has just recently moved on to a new job. So in her absence, at least for the time being, we're still trying to figure out what we're doing as far as coverage for you guys and on the west side. But for the time being, I am going to be attending your meetings. And also, I'm always here, similar to Jeremy. If you have questions and you want to email us to get answers to stuff, a lot of times there's things maybe you don't want to bring up in front of the group or just aren't super helpful. So I will go ahead and put my email address in the chat here. So that's usually the best way to reach out for me, because I'm just returning from maternity leave. So I'm a little bit, I'm part-time, so I'm a little bit here, a little bit there, but mostly at home. So phone is a little bit trickier to catch me on. You'll catch Tate at our office if you call the office, and she's super helpful as well. But I thought maybe I'd start out just to piggyback a little bit on the question you asked Jeremy about encampments and those kinds of things. He was spot on in saying these are not easy fixes. These are not simple problems to solve. You know, and there's obviously two very legitimate sides to, you know, the way people feel about this. There's folks who are concerned about, you know, the safety of their kids and the safety of their neighborhoods. And then on the flip side, we are talking about people in our community who are obviously in some sort of trouble. And who need some sort of help, whether they're willing to accept that help or not, is often some of the problem we run into. Currently, I actually just went to a meeting a few hours ago where we spoke with Chris Connor, and I don't know if you guys have ever had him come speak at any of your meetings, Brandy. Chris Connor from it's now the host office, so the Office of Housing Opportunity. I can never remember all the acronyms, but he previously ran the Denver's Road Home program. He used to work for Urban Peak. He is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most, you know, he's just an incredibly compassionate and very, very knowledgeable guy on a lot of the issues with our unhoused neighbors. And so I would encourage, if you guys would like to have someone come present at the meeting specifically about that sometime, to reach out to him. And Brandy or Jackie, if you ping me, I can get you in touch with him. But he mentioned in our last meeting a large number of things that are coming down the pipeline, things that I hadn't heard about yet. Like, for example, we're starting to build facilities in some of our shelters to allow people to bring their pets to the shelter, because that's one reason that people don't want to go to shelters. And they're continuing to work with a number of the service providers that we have in the city to try to be able to house people who are couples. That's actually a big problem. You know, maybe you have a partner who makes you feel safe and secure and you just want to be with that person, and you can't be together in a shelter. That may be another reason you stay out on the streets. So a lot of things going on, really tricky. You know, when we do get one area cleaned up, it tends to move someplace else. It also tends to happen across municipal borders. So you guys have probably experienced when Englewood does a big cleanup, you know, folks move up into Denver and vice versa. So definitely just keep us in the loop when you have questions. You know, as the legislative side of government, we don't have any enforcement ability, but we do have really great relationships with folks like Jeremy, with folks at Solid Waste and all those other agencies to hopefully get the ball rolling and get a little extra light shined on problems that get particularly bad. So that's just a little more from us on that, but do know that there are dollars and programs. There's actually a lot of COVID money coming down the pipeline that is going to be really helpful in helping get some of these things off the ground. So anyhow, but I wanted to give you guys an update on a couple other maybe more fun and exciting things. So we've got two things happening coming up here really quickly. So this coming Saturday is the Broadway Halloween Parade is back. So for those of you who've been in years past, we did have to skip 2020 for obvious reasons I don't need to go into, but things are back on track, and we're able to have the parade this year. So that's 6 p.m. on Broadway. We start at Fifth Avenue and we go south to Alameda. So anywhere along in there, come hang out. It's super kid friendly, super family friendly, but also kind of fun and spooky at the same time. It's not Disneyland either. So we really encourage folks to come down, check it out. Looks like the weather's going to be amazing. We're going to have everything from the Denver Hearse Club, who has about 13 hearses that are wild. Who knew that was a hobby for some people? To the Air Force Academy cadets kick off the parade in formation with the flag and the colors. So it's just a really fun day down on Broadway, and check out some of those businesses that can maybe use a little extra support this time of year. So that's coming up. And then I will also put a link in the chat here to Cabinet in the Community. Thank you, Brandy. I like that you're being my fingers for me while I talk. There is, for those of you who've been to a Cabinet in the Community in the past, it's a program that the mayor's office puts together where they bring specific people from the city down to talk about relevant things going on in particular districts, but also citywide. And this one coming up is actually going to be virtual, but it is going to be specific to District 7. So Joellen's going to be there and have a chance to chat a little bit. The mayor does ask us what we think, some of the hot topics are going to be in the community, and we have specifically asked him to provide someone from the administration who can answer questions and speak about our unhoused neighbors and homeless issues. So that's another great way to get some more information about what's happening and ask some questions of the executive side of the government, who has the ability to enforce our laws and those kinds of things. And then we've also asked that the climate office is there. So if you are not familiar with our new Office of Climate Sustainability, it's a really great opportunity to learn the things that we're doing, especially after the summer, which we had, crazy heat waves and crazy smoke and all that kind of stuff. Denver's really on the cutting edge of doing some really great work to hopefully help change the trajectory of our climate issues. So that's going to be another one of the big topics. So I will find the link to that and put that in the chat, but I will stop talking at you and I'll answer questions, or again, feel free to reach out to me via email. I'm always happy to hop on the phone with you, come down to the district, take a look at something, or schedule you some time to talk directly to Joellen, either in person or on the phone.
If anyone has any questions, you can pop them in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself if you want to represent them in person. I do have just one. Do you want to plug the election at all, or is there anything specifically we should be excited about or looking towards with this current ballot?
That's a really good question, Jackie. Thank you. Like I said, I'm a little out of touch, although I can see my ballot from here that I've been filling out, and it is a doozy this year, guys. It's our combined election, so it's got school board on it. It's also got a number of state and city initiatives on it. So it's one of those that's less about voting for people into office and more about voting for how your tax dollars are going to be spent and all those kinds of things. So it's a big one. The official date, I believe, of the election. So, in Denver, we have mail ballots. But I believe that Tuesday the 2nd is the official day, and those ballots need to be in by 7 p.m. If you're a registered Denver voter and you haven't received a ballot, that is something probably at this point to be a little concerned about. They did go out a couple weeks back, and they I think they've been on the ground for a little while now. You can, I will point out that I think I have already goofed up my ballot, so I may go in person in the Wellington Webb building right downtown there at Colfax and 15th, Bannock, and vote in person. So that is a possibility too. And then you can go to the Denver Votes website, and that's going to have all the information about places where you can drive through, bike through, drop off your ballot. The volunteers working at those stations are always super friendly, and you get your sticker and everything so you can prove you voted. But as far as city initiatives are concerned, really do your homework on this one. I'm not really in a position to tell you how to vote one way or another on these things, but I will say that there are some that are worded very persuasively that may not actually align with your values on some things. So do your homework, check those things out, check out who is sponsoring some of those items, and that should give you a better idea of what they're all about. So I did see Danny ask a question about the election office on 14th. I think what they did, Danny, is because the atrium of the Webb building is so much bigger with COVID, it gives a little more space to get people in. I think that lobby of the elections building on 14th isn't open to the public right now. So it's just a block down. So not too much further away, just on the other side of our building, the city and county building, which, by the way, they started loading the Christmas lights in the back door today. So they're starting to go up already, believe it or not. And so, yeah, you should be able to get down to the Webb building just as easily as 14th Street. But thanks for asking that, Danny. You're not brain dead. Oh, getting into that building. No, don't go brain dead. That would be bad. You have to look at that ballot. That ballot might make you brain dead. So you definitely want to do that. But yes, you also can drop your ballot, just like Jill said there, on 14th Street in front of the elections building. Kind of, it's actually, I think they have the tent on Bannock. And you know, Bannock in front of the city and county building is now closed down. So it's a little tricky. If you bike through, they will also take it that way and get a nice high five out of the deal.
Hey, Maggie, I have a question.
Yeah, Brandy, what's up?
So I hear of the lore of improved pedestrian and bike access on the Iowa underpass and also the east side of Overland Golf Course. So I know everyone is constantly anxiously awaiting updates on that, and I'd love to hear if you know of anything.
Yes, thanks for teeing me up for that. So for those of you who may have been following the saga of this project, just to orient you, so if you've ever tried to go essentially from your neighborhood, maybe over on Florida from Ruby Hill Park, along the golf course there, in order to get to the other side of the railroad tracks, Iowa is usually your best bet, especially if you're walking or biking. The big problem there is that the pedestrian access has stairs in it. And so one, it is next to impossible to get through on your bike. It's really just been underutilized for a number of years. So it tends to get really messy and dirty down there. So several years ago, we started trying to get that in the pipeline and get that fixed. You may also have experienced what I call the sidewalk of doom, which is the sidewalk that runs along Santa Fe at the golf course there. It's very narrow. I always feel like I'm getting passed by a concrete mixer at 55, 65 miles an hour. Is not a pleasant place to be. And so what we're doing is we've managed to secure funding for, and we should see some action before too long to both blow out the stairs under the Iowa underpass and make that ADA compliant, bikeable, walkable, all those kinds of things. And then also, instead of, originally they were going to just widen that sidewalk along Santa Fe, but what we decided to get Parks to agree to do was, instead of doing that, you may notice that there's a dirt berm on the west side of that sidewalk that if you get behind that berm, you really feel like you're in the golf course and not on a highway. And so they're going to be building a nice 10-foot wide multi-use path. So it'll feel a lot like the path on the other side of the golf course along the river there. And so once you get across, it'll punch through that berm, and then you'll be able to get from Florida down to Jewel on a really nice non-doomish sidewalk there, bike path, multi-use path. The project was broken into two because of some really obnoxious funding issues that I won't bore you with the details of, but we will probably see the portion along the golf course happen within the next year. So we'll probably see them working on that in the spring. We do have to remove, I think, one tree, but it's kind of a half dead tree, and they're going to plant a whole bunch more trees, so not a big deal. But that's probably going to start happening next year. The more complicated one, just because it involves engineering and concrete and going under the railroad and all that kind of stuff, is the underpass portion. But the thing is those are all fully funded and in the works. Just with, I mean, if you've done a construction project at home, you understand that these things take forever. And so just multiply that times 10, because you've got railroads involved in that kind of stuff, and it takes a while, but it is coming, it will happen. And in the next couple of years here, you should be able to have a nice, safe way to get from your neighborhood over to all of the great, restaurants and businesses and concert venues and cool stuff like that along Broadway. So that is the long and short of it, Brandy.
Awesome. That's very exciting to hear. There's always really exciting things happening in the neighborhood. So that's where I'm loving this platform, to be able to give this opportunity for people to see if they're not here in person. I'm very excited. That's very cool. And I've also had the cement truck experience way more often than you would think. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
And
then
that's just if it's, as a grown person, that's terrifying. Imagine bringing little kids or something with you. I can't even go there. So
exactly. It'll make enjoying our city so much easier just to be able to experience so much more of it safely. That's very exciting. Yeah. Well, and again, we can I know it's getting late into the evening. I always love all this information and realize how fast time is going. But as Maggie mentioned already, she did put her email in the chat. There's also communication tabs on the Lucky District 7. Option 311 is a wonderful opportunity. As you mentioned, Tate, who is representing the office, is wonderful too. Everyone with Councilman Clark's office is so wonderful and helpful and easy to work with. So if there are questions that come up, there was the quick question on the current timeline for the dual pedestrian bridge. Is there any update on that? Good.
Yeah, and I can give you the quick update on that project as well. You know, similar to the projects at Iowa and along Santa Fe, is fully funded. That money is dedicated. It's locked in. Remember, we voted on it on the bond we voted on a couple of elections back. My understanding is that is currently in engineering design. So you may remember that we had to look at if there needed to be any property acquisition on either side and all that kind of stuff. But that one is in the works and we should be seeing some final drawings of it before too long. I don't know construction. I think the last I heard was 2023 for construction. And that one's going to be, that one's obviously really going to be nice to have. But in the short term, I think the fact that we can get Iowa way better is at least going to give us one sort of outlet, literally and figuratively, for getting back and forth across that part of our district. It's like I call it the Grand Canyon. It's especially as someone who bikes up most places, it's tricky. And so it's happening. It's funded, but I will work on getting Dottie to send over a more specific update as well.
Awesome. And we'll definitely post all that information once we've got it. So very exciting. Thanks
Great.
for the question, Ann, too. All right. Well, moving right along. Thank you again so much for your time, Maggie. Appreciate you being here and always such good information. And yeah, I was working on my ballot earlier today, which is what made me think of that question. So it's a doozy. I appreciate your insight on that. Yeah, so we'll just go ahead and we will move on to Jill. Thanks, Maggie. With our streets partnership tonight, thank you so much for being here. And I will turn the field on to you. Awesome.
Thank you, Jackie. And I actually have a presentation to share if you can enable me
We'll
to
do that right now. All right, you should be good to go.
All right. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your whole screen, but we can see the presentation for sure.
All right.
There it is. Perfect.
Loading it into presentation mode there. So I'm Jill Locantore from the Denver Streets Partnership. Jackie mentioned Bicycle Colorado when she previewed my presentation. The Denver Streets Partnership is actually a division of Bicycle Colorado. We are a coalition of community groups that are advocating for people-friendly streets in Denver specifically. So we lead a variety of campaigns that are focused not just on making Denver for biking, but also better for walking and public transit and generally making our streets safer for everybody. So I'm here today to talk about one of those campaigns that we're actively working on, our Denver Deserves Sidewalks campaign. This is the vision statement for our campaign, and it's really grounded in the fundamental belief of the Denver Streets Partnership that human dignity should be the guiding principle for how we design our streets and our communities, our neighborhoods throughout the city. But the fact that so many of our neighborhoods are lacking sidewalks, some of the most basic infrastructure, means that a lot of people are hampered in their ability to move freely and independently and safely about Denver, particularly the more vulnerable members of our community, including people with disabilities, children, parents, and the like. So we are urgently calling on the city to create a comprehensive and integrated sidewalk network across the entire city so that we truly are prioritizing people in our transportation system and reducing our unhealthy dependence on cars as a primary form of transportation. So there are three main asks we have of the city. First of all, to create a comprehensive sidewalk network, which means repairing the broken sidewalks that are cracked and uneven, building new sidewalks where they don't currently exist, and upgrading the substandard sidewalks that are too skinny to really function as a sidewalk. They can't accommodate people in wheelchairs or parents with strollers. I know those are particularly prevalent in Southwest Denver. And in order to do that, we need a sustainable funding source to build out and maintain that sidewalk network in a timely manner in a way that doesn't unduly burden individual property owners, particularly in our lower income areas. And the good news is we already have a lot of existing plans that can inform the build out of the sidewalk network, including our Vision Zero action plan, which points to the places where we see the highest number of pedestrian fatalities and those parts of the city where people are most dependent on walking as a form of transportation, where we should focus the build out first. So a lot of people are surprised to know that unlike other types of basic infrastructure in Denver, building and maintaining sidewalks is entirely up to the adjacent private property owner. It's sort of the equivalent if you as a homeowner were responsible for filling the potholes in the street or repaving it when that was necessary. You can imagine if that's how we managed our streets, they probably would be in pretty poor condition. So it's not surprising at all that there are many neighborhoods throughout Denver that have missing or substandard or very deteriorated sidewalks. And ultimately, it comes down to the fact that it's just really inefficient to build out a transportation network one property at a time. By putting the onus on individual property owners, we get a lot of situations like pictured here, where you have a stretch of sidewalk in front of one house, but not the adjacent house. And that really doesn't do any good in terms of actually connecting you from point A to B when you're trying to walk around your neighborhood. And it also dramatically increased the cost when you're just trying to build 50 feet of sidewalk at a time rather than building it out throughout an entire neighborhood. It truly is a citywide problem. Fully 40% of Denver streets either have missing sidewalks or no sidewalks at all. 10% of the streets have no sidewalks, and 30% of the streets have, again, those substandard sidewalks. Usually they're about 18 inches wide, that aren't really functional, particularly if you have a disability. This is a map that the city created of the inventory of their current sidewalks. The blue areas are areas that do currently have sidewalks. These are the older parts of the city, typically that were built before World War II. But in those cases, those sidewalks haven't really been maintained since World War II. So they're in pretty serious disrepair. The purple areas are areas where the sidewalks are too skinny to really be functional. And again, you can really see those are very concentrated in Southwest Denver, including the Ruby Hill neighborhood. And then the red parts of the red sidewalks are ones that are missing altogether. If you're familiar with the inverted L that's often talked about when we talk about equity and issues in Denver, the parts of the city that are west of I-25 and north of I-70, those parts of the city traditionally have not gotten the same level of attention or investment, and sidewalks are the same. So it really is a social justice issue as well. Nearly half of the streets in low-income areas have missing or substandard sidewalks, which really isn't very surprising when we leave sidewalk construction and maintenance up to the adjacent private property owners. If the property owners are wealthy, they're going to have the resources and the wherewithal to help build and maintain a nice sidewalk network. For example, the picture on the left here is in the Tennyson neighborhood in Northwest Denver. compared to the picture on the right is the Globeville neighborhood in Denver, where a lot of households don't own cars. They rely on transit and walking to transit as a means of getting to their daily destinations. But huge portions of that neighborhood have no sidewalks to connect people to those transit stops. It's also a public safety issue. If you've been paying attention to the news, we've been having a huge number of serious and fatal traffic crashes here in Denver recently, and disproportionately people walking are the victims of those traffic crashes. Even though only about 5% of people currently walk to work in Denver, about 40% of the traffic fatalities are people walking. And the lack of basic safe infrastructure like sidewalks is definitely a contributing factor to that. Those of you who might be familiar with the predecessor to the Denver Streets Partnership, Walk Denver, we actually started a sidewalk campaign 6 years ago in 2015, where we called on the city to start being more proactive about our sidewalks. And we did get some initial wins. Prior to that time, the city had literally allocated $0 per year towards sidewalks. But starting in the 2017 annual budget, the city started allocating about $2 to $3 million per year for building new sidewalks. Most of those have been adjacent to publicly owned property like parks. So for example, in the picture here, this is a new sidewalk on 23rd Avenue adjacent to City Park that was built with that funding. Also in 2017, Denver voters approved a general obligation bond, very similar to what's on the ballot again this year. That included nearly $50 million for new sidewalks construction, with a big chunk of that dedicated specifically to the Globeville neighborhood that I highlighted earlier. Also in 2017, the city adopted a new pedestrian plan called Denver Moves Pedestrians and Trails, which estimated the full cost of building out a complete sidewalk network across the entire city, which you can see at the bottom of the chart on the right, would actually cost about $1 billion. Sounds like a lot of money, but remember, we're talking about 40% of the streets in Denver. So basically building out a brand new transportation network for nearly half of the city, and also established a prioritization scheme for how we would start doing that build out. Again, starting on the high injury network, those streets where we see the highest number of traffic fatalities, and then prioritizing streets that connect to transit and other high priority destinations like schools, parks, the kinds of places we want our kids to be able to safely walk to on a daily basis. And then our Vision Zero action plan laid out a number of annual targets for starting to build out infrastructure improvements that would help us get us towards the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities, including miles of sidewalks per year, starting with 14 miles of sidewalk per year in 2018, increasing to 20 miles of sidewalk per year starting in 2020. But you can see the city has been falling well short of its own goals there, building on average 4 to 6 miles of sidewalks per year. So now that we're 4 years into the Vision Zero action plan, we're still only 20% of the way about towards that goal of building out sidewalks, at least as identified in that plan. And really, ultimately, it comes down to funding. Again, this is a $1 billion problem, so we need to allocate some substantial funding to it if we want to build out our network in a timely manner. At our current rate of about $2 to $3 million per year, it would take literally over 400 years to build out a complete sidewalk network for Denver. And I don't know about you, but that's not quite fast enough for me. The other thing that Denver did in 2017 is it did start a proactive neighborhood sidewalk inspection and repair program. Previously, it had all been entirely complaint driven. So basically you had to tattle on your neighbor that their sidewalk was broken, and then the city would come and issue them a citation and ask them to please fix it on their own dime. The city is still requiring you to fix it on your own dime, but they're actually now proactively inspecting the sidewalks. And the plan was they divided the city into 11 districts, and they wanted to inspect all the sidewalks in one district per year. So they would get throughout the entire city within 11 years, and all of our sidewalks would be repaired. Well, that program started in 2017, and they're still stuck in the first district. And part of the problem is so many of the sidewalks are in disrepair, a lot more than they originally anticipated. So far, about 80% of the sidewalks that they've inspected require repairs. So there's a lot more work to be done than they initially realized. They do offer some low-income subsidies. If you're a lower-income household, you can apply for either some loans or actual grants to help cover the cost of the sidewalk repairs. But those are only available to you if you will live in the district where they're currently doing those proactive inspections. So right now they're only available to households in District 1, which, as you can see on the map, does not include Ruby Hill. So no one in your neighborhood is eligible for those subsidies, which is not particularly fair. So the Denver auditor actually did an audit of the sidewalk repair program that he released last year and essentially declared it a failure, saying that it's continuing to perpetuate these inequities and unequal access to safe and accessible sidewalks throughout the city, and called upon the Department of Transportation and the city to reevaluate this current policy that says the entire responsibility for sidewalks is on the adjacent property owner. And is that really helping us meet our goals as a city? I think it's worth pointing out as well that there is no current plan for addressing the sidewalks that are too skinny, even though we are throwing, $2 to $3 million per year at building new sidewalks, and we have a slow and ineffectual sidewalk repair program. We have zero program for doing anything about the skinny sidewalks right now. And there's also been increasing attention focused on the fact that our sidewalk program is running counter to our efforts to provide more affordable housing in Denver by increasing the cost for projects that are intended to add more affordable housing in our neighborhoods. Some of you may be familiar with the program in Southwest Denver to try and help property owners build accessory dwelling units on their property, which is a way to provide both an affordable housing option in the neighborhood and also help build wealth for property owners so they're less likely to be displaced from the neighborhood. But a lot of those projects have triggered the requirement for the property owner to build or repair or upgrade the adjacent sidewalk, which can add tens of thousands of dollars of cost to the project and work against the intention there of creating an affordable housing option. So essentially, we're being forced to choose. Do you want a walkable neighborhood or do you want affordable housing in your neighborhood? We don't think that's right. We think Denver deserves to have both of those in their neighborhoods. And so ultimately, Denver's just failing to live up to its own stated priorities. You might have seen this diagram before. It was adopted in Blueprint Denver, which is the city's overarching plan for land use and transportation, sets the vision and the goals for our city for the next 20 years or so. And that plan explicitly states that pedestrians should be the top priority of our transportation system and should be prioritized on all of our city streets. And that's just impossible to do when we're lacking the most basic infrastructure for people walking. The question we're asking is, why should sidewalks be different from other basic infrastructure? So for example, we all pay in our property taxes into an annual street maintenance program that's about $45 million per year that pays for filling potholes in the street, repaving. If you're a homeowner, you also pay into the wastewater enterprise fund. It's based on the amount of impervious surface on your property. That generates about $50 million per year that helps pay for maintaining our stormwater system. Why can't we have a similar system for our sidewalks? And there are models from other cities, both here in Colorado and across the country. For example, in Englewood, they have an opt-in fee that property owners can add to their water bill. It's based on the square footage of concrete or sidewalk in front of their house. And if they participate in that program, the city just goes ahead and takes care of any needed sidewalk improvements in front of their house. And something like 98% of property owners have decided to opt into that. They'd much rather pay that nominal fee on their utility bill rather than be on the hook for thousands of dollars of sidewalk repairs. So just to reiterate, these are the top line asks of our campaign. We want the city to create a comprehensive sidewalk network, address those 40% of streets that have missing substandard sidewalks, as well as repair the broken sidewalks. We need a sustainable, dedicated funding source to do that, that doesn't place the undue burden on property owners, and use all those great plans that we have, Blueprint Denver, Denver Moves Pedestrians, the Vision Zero Action Plan, to guide the implementation of the sidewalk network. So our ask of you today is to join our campaign. You can learn more about it and take action at the website denversidewalks.com. The main action you can take is to sign on to the campaign. You can sign on as an organization. So the Ruby Hill RNO could sign on to the campaign, and each of you in this meeting could sign on as an individual as well. We're also asking people to share their photos of bad sidewalks in their neighborhood on social media using the Sad Sidewalks hashtag. We've been hosting a bunch of walking tours with city council members throughout the city through a series we're calling Sidewalk Palooza, to start that conversation with city council members. Councilman Clark has actually already gone on 2 walking tours. One focused on the east side of his district, east side of I-25, and then another one in the Val Verde neighborhood north of Ruby Hill. I think he might consider going on a 3rd walking tour if Ruby Hill was interested in inviting him to come check out the sidewalks in your neighborhood. We also have yard signs that you can put up. We have a web form you can fill out to tell your story about why sidewalks are important to you. If you're part of another community group that you think would be interested in this topic, I'm happy to come present to them. But again, the main ask that we have of you tonight is just to sign on to the campaign. We hope that you would consider doing so both as an organization and as individuals. And I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Jill,
Thank you so much. Oh, go ahead, Brandy.
Yeah, I'm sure I was just going to say what you're going to say. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for the presentation. And Ron had a question in the chat. He said, is there an update to the bike lanes on Irving? Irving, am I saying that right? And he said, also, I just want to say I live right next to Evans, which is part of the Vision Zero program. I'm constantly watching folks drive way over 30 miles per hour, which is the speed limit. So I guess the question is, are there any updates to the bike lanes on Irving? And just comments on how people drive way too fast on Evans, which is definitely true.
I will have to get back to you about the bike lanes on Irving. The good news is the city is actually starting to build out a lot more bike lanes than they have historically, which makes it a little challenging for us to stay on top of the status of all of the planned bike lanes. So I'm not entirely sure where Irving is in terms of the schedule of implementing it. I do know a lot of the bike lanes were actually delayed a bit because of issues city across the country are facing during COVID. You know, there's been supply chain issues and things like that that have actually delayed just trying to get the paint and the bollards and the things like that. So that may be partly what's at play with Irving, but I can look into that one specifically and get back to you. And Evans, I would definitely agree. One of the major challenges on especially those big arterials that are part of the high injury network is speeding. And one of the key strategies we're pushing for on those big streets is really fundamentally redesigning those streets. Transit actually can be a big part of that. If we get more people using transit, that's a safe way to move a lot of people down that corridor. And if we add dedicated transit lanes to those streets, it actually reduces the number of general purpose lanes for vehicles, which is a very effective way of reinforcing safer, slower speeds on those streets. But that's a whole nother topic. Happy to come back some other time and talk to you more about our advocacy around transit and some of those changes we need on the major arterials.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jill. And I know Brandy said to put questions in chat. There was a lot of information. Again, also in chat is the website where to sign on to this. And so appreciate that call to action and think it's awesome. I do also respect that we are getting late into the meeting time. So as long as there are no questions, we're going to continue right on with the agenda. All that said too, understanding timing, I am planning on taking each one of these presentations and posting them separately so that everyone gets the appropriate amount of time and coverage, and those who aren't able to see it in the meeting will get to see it posted in our social medias. And so I really appreciate all that information. It was awesome info. So yeah, thank you so much, Jill. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And please feel free to follow up with any questions.
Awesome. All right. I believe we have both Andy and Chris. Chris was on earlier. I know Andy's in here too, just to talk about the Levitt Pavilion season, kind of wrapping things up for the season, what that all looked like. And yeah, so I'll pass it on over to Andy.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, that wasn't Chris. We share an account, so I had to change my name from Chris to Andy.
Got it. Got it.
Use there. And thanks for that presentation on sidewalks. I just moved to East Colfax, and we have the worst sidewalks. Not to compare them to anything in Southwest Denver, but we got it bad over here too. My name's Andy. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Deputy Director at Levitt Pavilion Denver. For those of you that don't know Levitt Pavilion Denver and you live in Ruby Hill, you really should become aware of us and our concerts, because we do 50 free concerts every year. And yeah, this year was wild. After 2020 not doing any concerts, we came out swinging, and we actually had what we consider the best season that we've ever had. We really appreciate those of you that constantly are at the venue supporting us. It really does mean a lot that people in the neighborhood care about the venue so much. I do have some kind of stats I can go over real quick just to kind of couch that claim that we had the best season ever. First off, we did send out a neighborhood survey recently, and I just want to have a couple different stats from that. 75% of respondents had an overwhelmingly positive opinion of Levitt Denver. 64% of respondents attended one or more shows per year. Obviously, like to get that up to much higher. And 77% of respondents are rarely or never disturbed by Levitt concerts. Something funny I did want to share, I think we've always kind of talked about how much we're aware of our sound ordinances, and we're always trying to work on that. 303 Magazine wrote an article, and this actually happened. We were booed at an EDM festival because we turned down the volume in the middle of a set because they were going past their set time. So we had to come down because they were going a little past 10:30. So we turned them down. So they were, as the article says, embarrassingly quiet. And then when we cut them at 10:30, they booed us. So if there's ever any perception that we don't pay attention to noise, please share that article. It's actually one of my proudest moments. Some other numbers that we have this year, and I'll just go over these real quickly. So in 2021, we did 43 free shows. So we didn't quite get to 50 because of the way that artists were touring and the way people were coming back to concerts. So 43, we promised to do 50 again next year. We got an exemption from the Levitt Foundation to do as many as we could. We thought we would do maybe 30, but we did do 43 free shows. We did 15 admission-based events. We did 5 rentals. So that's a total of 63 events this year. Just for some context, the number of attendance that we had in 2017, the number of people, was 37,000. And then in 2018, we went up to 60,000. 2019, we went up to 64,000. 2020, we had 0 people. And then in 2021, this year, we went all the way up to 125,000. So that's a significant jump. Out of those 125,000, 85,000 people came to the free shows, 39,000 to the ticketed. So we had an average attendance on the free shows of 2,015, and then on the ticketed events, 2,700. So we used to kind of have a more disparate gap between the free and the ticketed shows, but because of people not being able to go to concerts, like especially for those of you that were at those early concerts, like people came out in droves, and kind of all the way through the year, we saw a little bit of a lull when we saw that the Delta variant was starting to come back. And I think we saw some consumer confidence dip maybe in the middle of the season, but by the end, people were back. And we definitely had an advantage to being a large outdoor venue. We never had to do any sort of vaccination requirements up to the very end when the tour required us to show vaccination cards at the door. But other than that, we were kind of business as usual. We never had any breakouts. We never had any, extreme cases from what I heard. So it was nice to know that despite everything, us being a large outdoor venue kept everyone safe, and we were able to experience all the things that we loved again. We are over with the season for now. We will come back in May and hopefully have as successful of a season as we did last year. We already started to take some holds. I think 2022 will be an interesting year for music, as everything's kind of like backed up, for lack of a better term. Artists are still touring, but not as with the frequency as they did previously. But in some ways that kind of helps us because we get some kind of spillover from some of the venues, and we have potential for some pretty big shows next year. And yeah, I don't think there's really a lot else to say. I did want to leave some time for some questions, and I know we're running kind of late, but yeah, it was a great year. We still have some things to work on next year in regards to kind of signage in the park that we're working with Parks and Rec about. We do have kind of consistent meetings with Mark, I can't remember his last name. He's the Deputy Director of Parks and Rec, and he's been super accommodating and kind of understand some of the things that Parks needs to do in order to make like wayfinding and traffic flow in the park safer. We did pretty much everything we could do in regards to that this year. Brandy was nice enough to kind of lead some comments to an article in the Denverite that was written. And I think the perception of that article was basically like, we're really trying to do everything we can. And we're hoping that we can get some help from Parks. And they have been great, but I think we finally have an understanding that we're going to work together. But we put up tons of signage and we put up tons of fence, and we had staff in the park. And I have to redo the parking plan to make it a little safer. So that's part of what, you know, we're always trying to work on, is there's all the stuff inside of the venue that's really complicated and kind of hard to pull off, but the stuff outside of the park is also part of it. Stuff outside of the venue, I should say, within the park. And that's something we're continue to work on. So thanks, Brandy, for saying nice things about us. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I guess the last thing is, for those of you that ever have comments during the season, we do have a community advisory board that Jackie is a part of, and Brandy and Jace are a part of, and Marilyn's a part of. So if there's ever like concerns that you'd like to maybe not address directly with me, you can definitely address it to one of those folks, and they can bring it to the advisory board. And we really try to discuss, you know, issues like that and kind of how we can improve. And we want to always be ready to hear comments from the neighborhood. And I'm happy to take those directly too. I think most folks have my email and cell phone, and that's sometimes a great pathway, and other times, you know, not so great, but but I'll continue to be that voice. I think it's better. I'd always rather hear directly from people. But if you don't feel comfortable, like I said, we do have the community advisory board. And yeah, if there's any questions about anything going on next year, I can't tell you which bands are booked just quite yet. But I can hint. But we don't really, we have one show confirmed for next year and a lot of holds. But yeah, does anyone have any comments about things they saw at the venue last year, or things we should think about moving forward?
Hey, Andy, this is Graydon. Yeah, I just had a question. So how does someone in the community, say myself, get involved in Levitt Pavilion? Are there opportunities? I know you mentioned that board, and I guess can you elaborate on that board? Is there opportunities to apply to get involved with that board? Yeah, if you could just elaborate some more, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, there's definitely opportunities. It's a smaller group, and we're always looking for more folks. We don't meet in the off season typically because, you know, we don't have as many things to talk about, quite honestly. But yeah, why don't you shoot me an email, and I'll add you to the list, or we can have a conversation before. But really, it is just super informal. We have people from the neighborhood. We have people from Overland. We have kind of people who work in the neighborhood, people who work at Denver Health. And we discuss very specific issues like parking and sound and concerns from the neighborhood. And then we kind of go over some of the larger community stuff that we focus on, like school programs and things like that. So it's just a voice for Ruby Hill to have, and a way for the neighborhood to be a little more involved. But yeah, Andy at Levitt Denver.
Yeah, Brandy put your email in the comments. So in case, Graydon, if you need it, and also feel free to reach out. We can all connect. We can do an e-introduction for sure. And also too, I will just preemptively and say likely we'll have you back in April before the season gets up and running again, just to talk about the upcoming season for 2022 as well. So that will be exciting at that point. We'll put you on the agenda.
Totally, yeah. Mark it down now. I got nothing going on.
Okay.
I'll be free that day, I guarantee it. Yeah, no, it does mean a lot that everyone kind of came out as much as they did. Let's get that 64% of people who filled out that survey number up, because there's no reason why everyone who lives in Ruby Hill shouldn't be coming to the shows. Our music
Awesome.
sounds way better in the bowl than it does in your house, I always say.
I will vouch for that. It is pretty cool to be able to hear live music while you're out walking your dog, but it is definitely pretty awesome to have those shows live in the park. And Shovels and Rope, the last show was a pretty great one. So that was a good way to go out with a bang.
Totally. I agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate it. Again, contact information is in the chat. If you do have any questions for that community outreach opportunity, just reach out to myself, to the Ruby Hill email address, to Andy directly. However, whatever we can support with, we're always happy to, because it is such an integral part of our community and of the neighborhood. So we appreciate your time. We're excited that the season is over for you to get a little bit of rest in the off season, but we also really appreciate this previous season. It was pretty incredible. So super, super awesome thing to have in the neighborhood. And yeah, again, I know we're trucking right along, so I don't want to cut anyone's questions off or comments off, but I do want to make sure that we have enough time for our wonderful final presenter, Sochi, who is one of our school board candidates, there's the word. And I'm so excited to have you here tonight as well, and to share your presentation about what we have to look forward to on this ballot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jackie and Brandy, for allowing me some time to share with you all about my campaign, why I'm running. My name is Xochitl Gaitan. I'm running for Denver School Board, District 2, that's Southwest Denver. It includes Ruby Hill. As far north as 6th Avenue, as far east as Broadway, west Sheridan, and as far south as Bellevue. So it's a big district. It covers quite a bit. So I'm running because I want to ensure that we're protecting public education, meaning we're protecting our neighborhood public schools. And I want to ensure that there's been talk in the last 4 to 6 years about an audit to the budget, and it still has yet to be done. And we need to work on that. There's bits and pieces of the budget that were audited, but we need a full budget, and for DPS to be more transparent on how they're spending that. We need to spend that wisely. I mean, this is our property tax dollars that we're talking about here, and it's being mismanaged, in my opinion. And we need to start allocating those resources back into the classroom directly to our teachers. They're in deep need right now of resources and our support. I'm actually the Denver Classroom Teachers Association. I'm wearing my DCTA t-shirt. I am their endorsed candidate for District 2, Southwest Denver. And I want to ensure that we're providing with that funding, also providing wraparound services like mental health services, counseling, things like that, not only for our teachers, but our students that are in deep need right now. I can share so much. There's so much that I could share with you all, back to what Officer Chavez was sharing. He didn't go into too many detail, but I'm sure if we were to go into detail as to maybe the age group of the young people that are stealing these cars, we could maybe safely assume that these are younger people, young teens that are out, not keeping busy enough. and we need to be able to provide some internships. We provide them in some high schools, but we are very inconsistent in providing these services for our young students in high school, where we're not providing enough internships, opportunities, and programming for them to get involved in other things besides running around on the street late at night trying to steal cars. I live in Harvey Park. I'm your neighbor. I actually lived in Ruby Hill. My husband and I owned a little 2-bedroom in Ruby Hill, and then we had children, and we couldn't expand the family in a little 2-bedroom, so we sold that, went to Harvey Park, and got a bigger home where we've been in Harvey Park for 20 years. And we raised our 24-year-old and 14-year-old. So I graduated from Lincoln High School. So did my husband. That's where we met. We've been in this community forever. We were raised here. I'm a businesswoman. I'm a 19-year veteran real estate agent. So I've earned my Bachelor of Science in Business Management from Metro. And we're a part of this community. I'm doing this from the heart, because I realize that there's still issues in DPS that we need to work on. And I've been a strong voice for education justice issues, social justice issues for a very long time. I was president of Harvey Park for 5 years. I stepped down at the end of 2019 and then started preparing to run for Denver School Board. So here I am, really looking forward to just answering any other questions. Let me give you a little bit tidbit. 50% so of the total schools in Southwest Denver, 50% are now charter and innovation schools, which means they're being privately run by nonprofits. And this is part of what's called the education reform agenda. So sometimes the word reform is good, it's a positive thing, but in this case, they've been really moving towards privatizing education. The Denver School Board currently has 19 schools on the list that they're looking at closing. 10 of those 19 are in Southwest Denver. They're in our district, and it includes one in Ruby Hill, Godsman. So they're looking at closing Godsman and possibly inserting a charter. So I'm very, very highly concerned. I'm not completely, guys, against charters. I'm just saying we're moving in the wrong direction. That's not what we should be doing. We need to be strengthening our neighborhood schools and really moving that funding there and helping our public school teachers out. So with that, I'll just kind of leave it open to questions. I've got a lot more to share, but I'll leave it up to you all.
I will make the quick comment as well that one of our neighbors is supporting you and did post your campaign. Ron, you can see him celebrating there. And from what I gathered, another Lincoln grad. So yeah, but he did post that information as well. So for anyone who is in the chat, please make sure that you are checking out Xochitl's campaign page and the platform. I did have a quick question regarding, you mentioned internships and different opportunities along those lines. I work in career and technical education from a different perspective as well. And so I'm just curious what that pathway looks like. If you have more specifics in regards to that you would like to share, or we can chat offline too.
We need to be able to connect and communicate this information about career technical education programming, right? We need to be able to communicate that to parents and students and say, this is available, check out this program. There's a lot of different unions that are offering the pipe fitters and the electricians. They're all offering these different programming for students after, because there's going to be young people that are just not going to want to go to college. They're not on the college track. Right. I would love, if you were that student that would just love to be passionate about college and university. Yeah. But some young kids are not going to be on the college track. So let's provide these different resources of information. Right now, the information is not getting to those students. I don't know why it's been so inconsistent. So we need to find processes and procedures where we're consistent with the information, getting them access to that information to the parent and the student. So there's this wide range of opportunity and information for them to make that decision with their family. What is their track? Is it vocational or trade school or college, university? But yeah, we need to be able to provide. I would love for students to walk out of DPS just having a passion for learning, whatever that is, whether your thing is science, whether you want to become a biologist, whether you're, you are an artist, you want to go work for Levitt Pavilion and help artists grow, be a creative. I would love for all of this to happen. I personally love drama in high school. I actually perform every now and then. I go and I go and I do auditions out of Su Teatro, which is a local community theater on 7th and Santa Fe, and I do auditions. I've had many different acting roles there. So I would love for students to be able to walk out of DPS, graduate from DPS, having this love of learning. So yeah, let me know if there's anything else, but please, if and when I get in that seat, I would need your support. I need Ruby Hill's support though. Because I'm very concerned, again, Godsman being one of those schools of the 10 they want to close, that we help Godsman remain open, and that we find the funding, and we remain, that we keep our neighborhood schools as the beacon of every neighborhood. So for you all, that would be Godsman and Schmidt, I think. One more thing that makes you different from the other candidate. I'm a parent, I'm a DPS parent. I've got an 8th grader right now in DPS. So I'm really, really passionate about this issue. I live the issue, I live the school closure issue as well. So 14 years ago, when my 24-year-old was 10, DPS closed Coonsmiller on us for a whole school year. So, if that were to happen again with any of these 10 schools in Southwest Denver, it's going to be so heartbreaking. Their DPS is giving them, when they do that, they give the message to the community that that your school is failing and that your kids are failing. And that's just not okay for me. And so I would be the one to fight back. And, again, being the union candidate, both myself and my opponent applied, interviewed, and they chose me because they know that I've had this experience for 14 years, ever since they closed Coonsmiller back then for a whole school year, that I fought back. And I ensured that we protected public education, and we fought back to make sure that our teachers had their rights. I've been in this movement for 14 years. So there's that fact. And the fact that, I've been a community leader here in Southwest Denver for so long. I haven't left my community. I graduated from DPS. My opponent did not. Yes, I'm accepting DCTA union endorsement and funding for my campaign, but that is fun. It's not dark money. It's funding from the teachers' union dues, monthly union dues. So it's not dark money, right? Whereas my opponent does have dark money and is taking in special interest money from out-of-state millionaires and billionaires. So that's another difference between myself being a grassroots candidate versus a special interest candidate. Hopefully that helps. Schmidt is not on the chopping block. Godsman is one of the 10. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your passion and your insight, and for your time this evening. I know it's a late evening, and we appreciate those of you who are here and representing against, again, your campaign. Email or website is posted in the chat. So as you mentioned, you have many things on your platform. For those who are interested, feel free to check it out through that link, and appreciate the questions that are coming through as well. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else in chat.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Brandy, and everyone. Ruby Hill, I left my heart in Ruby Hill. We owned a home there for 5 years. And so, but I still go back and visit, and I go check out the concerts at Levitt Pavilion too. And I love that Levitt Pavilion they offer such a wide, diverse set of music, because I've gone to the nights where they've done the mariachi and all of that. So I love that you guys are doing that.
Absolutely. Yes, we feel very honored to have them as part of the community. And, from school and community outreach, they have historically been very active within the DPS schools as well, as far as music education and outreach as well. So a lot of common ground there. So we, again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your presentation. If there is any other questions, I'm sure there's a communication tab provided. So for those who are in attendance or who might be watching this after the fact, if they have questions, is that one way that they could reach out to you in the meantime?
Awesome. Yeah, you can reach it. Yeah, my phone number is going to be there, my email, so that, that's the best and easiest way to reach out to me. Facebook too, you can look for me on, I've got my Facebook school board page where I post tons of information. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Sochi, and thank you everyone for sticking with it with this meeting tonight, this virtual platform. I know it's a little bit less common than it has been in the last year, but I know we all have a lot of screen time. So appreciate you being here and a part of this neighborhood meeting. Stay tuned. We will be sure to be adding the social components here shortly, where less of agenda, a little bit more of an opportunity to just be connected with neighbors. and we will have more agenda-based items for these monthly neighborhood meetings in a virtual capacity. But again, thank you so much, everyone, and have a marvelous rest of your evening. And please reach out. Oh, Ron just posted your Facebook page, so grab that before the meeting ends. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about tonight, any information that you would like to hear more about, that Brandy and I could reach out to community members in, remember to vote in the next couple weeks. That's really important. Our voices need to be heard. If there are any questions, concerns, comments about anything that's happening in our neighborhood, just feel free to utilize 311 and to reach out to Officer Chavez or Councilman Clark's office, or the Ruby Hill page as well. We're all here to support and help, and thank you guys so much, and have a marvelous rest of your night. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.